Welcome back, everyone, to week 9 of season 9, and this is the all or nothing match for Trauma and Calamity. The playoffs are ahead of us. Next weekend, we are going into the top 4 teams, fighting for $5,000 prize pool, and only one more slot is available. Elysium Eternal and Ariandel are already through, and that means that Calamity and Trauma have this direct matchup to decide who's moving forward. And with me for that, the wonderful Cole. Welcome in today.
Good morning, afternoon, whichever is appropriate.
Cole, let's jump right into it to discuss the two teams here, Trauma and Calamity. Just before going into stats and their records, how do you feel about this upcoming best of 3 today?
I really don't know what to expect from two of the sets. I feel like Calamity should be maybe a slight favorite overall, but that unknown set really is a massive unknown to me. And then the Nurse set's the one that I'm really looking forward to. It's always nice to see two teams that like playing Nurse going at it.
Absolutely. We have Calamity and Trauma with insane Nurse players, with insane survivors going against the Nurse as well. It's so amazing to watch that. And I love that this will be the ultimate set towards the end. If we are having no decision, what could be more intense than having a killer that is giving you no time for the setup on the generators, no time for the decision making, and is requiring you sometimes to craft a complete different game plan in just 2.5 seconds, because sometimes that's all you get at the Nurse. So that would be an insane finisher. We're going to talk about the tiebreaker in a moment. Demogorgon first. Calamity picked the Demogorgon. A very mind game orientated killer, especially on the ARP. A lot of resources there, but at the same time, dangerous 3 gens possible and the top or bottom side, so main and shack side. Maybe even a 4 gen. So if the early game is going wrong, and the early game went wrong multiple times in Season 9 on the Demogorgon for a lot of teams, then you're in a difficult spot.
Oh, absolutely. And Demogorgon has been a huge pick for Calamity. They picked it weeks 4, 5, and 6, beat Cynic with it, beat Elysium with it, beat Oh Boy with it, then had it banned against them in the 2 weeks leading up to this. They should be 100% confident going into this set that this is what they're going to win anyone on. Trauma, on the other hand, we have not seen it from them. They were okay with it being a tiebreaker in the last 2 weeks, but they never got to play it. Now, I will say, to their credit, Eternal did ban it against them, so maybe there's something that Trauma's got in their back pocket with this pick that we don't yet know about, but Eternal did.
And we are having another pick where we are a little bit unsure, right? You, Cole, worded it very nice earlier. The result of the second set is pretty unknown for him, and we actually have the unknown right there. Cole, we talked about it. It was an unexpected selection, right? First, that Calamity didn't ban the unknown, really. We haven't seen them touching this killer too much and with too much care and confidence, I would say. And on the other hand, Trauma is also not the most crazy on the unknown.
Yeah, I would say so. I think Unknown is one of these killers that has, of course, was recently released, and it's become really popular, and there's been quite a few teams that seem to really enjoy playing it. It's also something that I believe has become at least reasonably popular on the 1v1 ladder, and we know from Calamity, they've got Rocket playing a lot of these 1v1 killers, including Demogorgon, so I'm curious to see who the unknown player is for Calamity, if it will be Rocket or if it will be someone else. We've seen in the past Calamity banned Unknown against 4 different teams who are like unknown teams. Trauma being a little bit more comfortable letting it through. They did beat Tremor with it in Tremor's last match of the regular season, but they did lose to Cynic. And what I remember about that match in specific was there was a very unfortunate down that happened on a broken ruin totem. There was a camp to death on top of Pentimento, and it was very tragic. So even though they lost that set off the back of one crucial mistake, I think that's very solvable. And I would like to see if Trauma has been one of these teams that has really added Unknown to their arsenal.
Yeah, it will be a very, very intense set, I feel like. First of all, as you mentioned, really difficult pick for both Team Calamity Bandit in the past. Not entirely sure where they have taken this confidence from. Maybe they were saying against Trauma, we are preparing something. Maybe Calamity was somehow expecting that Trauma would bring the Unknown. I'm really not entirely sure. But we also have a very, very difficult environment where we are playing the Unknown on. The Wrecker's Yard does have a couple of dangerous zones, and you need some unique strategies to be successful on the Wrecker's Yard. And we think it's the best if we take a look onto the Wrecker's Yard together, everyone. Let's do that.
Wrecker's Yard is special. It's the only Macmillan or Autohaven variant that doesn't have a main building and instead has the Killer Shack in the dead center. This creates a lot of unique strategies, one of which is the first chase being taken towards the shack, dropping shack pallet, and then using that guaranteed distance to die in the right spot afterwards. We've also seen some unique strategies emerging, such as tripling the guaranteed Killer Shack for the first chase to get it out of the way. Another very popular tactic here is dying on pallets and having the sprint burst player ready to pallet save. Wreckers is both small and it has a lot of clutter and tiles to hide behind, which makes it pallet save central, and you'll find many of the best teams playing for them constantly on Wreckers as part of their game plan. With the shack, the basement is also always at the center, which matters a lot for certain killers. Many teams will try to die away from basement and away from active gens, which often leads to them dying in the pockets at the edges of the map. However, be careful because a 3-gen often does spawn around these pockets, and with the hook deep inside and enough pressure, the killer might be able to protect his pocket 3-gen. Wreckers also always spawns a truck and always spawns either the crane or the bus. These structures can either be very strong or quite useless, depending on what killer you're facing and the variation of the structure that spawns. Overall, Wreckers is fascinating. It's a breeding ground for new and interesting strategies and tactics. The openness of the map also makes it really popular for projectile killers. It's also the most popular 1v1 map because of the interconnected nature of the Killer Shack with many tiles and fillers. Both in chase and in terms of strategy, there is a lot of depth, and for all those reasons, Wrecker's Yard has become a staple in tournaments. Wrecker's Yard.
And that was Wrecker's Yard, which has been one of our absolute comp staples. It's always a pleasure to see. We got so many different connected tiles for these teams to play around, these deep pockets to die in. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these teams path in their chases, how the killers, find places to hold, when they choose to break chase, when they don't, if they can go for basement camps, and with Unknown in particular having this map mobility. There's a lot of different options that they have. It's a fantastic killer for this map in particular.
Absolutely. We are hyped to see what's happening here, especially this early game will be crucial for the teams. We have seen some agitation plays as well on the Wrecker's Yard, so maybe we'll see an aggressive killer like Rocket, who's going to start here for Calamity, try to get it down as quick as possible, taking the agitation, going into the basement, having the first survivor down there would definitely fall into their advantage. We are having them together. Granite, Escape, Swatter, and Autumn Sadness will take the responsibility for Team Trauma, and everything is good to go in the background, ladies and gentlemen. So we are loading in right here, which leaves us for the perfect timing to go into some predictions. Cole, Trauma and Calamity. Best of 3 about the playoffs. Who's going to make it at the end for you?
I do think Calamity, I think Calamity is 100% going to take this particular set, our first Demogorgon set. I think they should be very slight favorites going into the whole match. They have a little bit slightly better loss record. They've been cleaner in their wins. They've taken off games from the matches they've lost against, top teams. Well, the absolute top teams, the ones that are already in the playoffs. Not to say that they're not themselves. Trauma has looked a little bit shakier along the way, so I would be giving it to Calamity here.
I'm afraid I will be on your side, which is always a little bit not so great when the casters are on the same side, because obviously we want a little bit of controversial discussion going on here. But I have to go with Calamity as well. When I'm looking back at the experiences we made with Calamity in DBDL in difficult circumstances whenever they were under pressure, I feel like Calamity always delivered, and Calamity was always able to give us a wow effect in these circumstances. So let's find out, everyone, if that's going to be the case. We are having the Demogorgon for ourselves. No one escapes death. Rancor, agitation coming out even on the Astro's resting place, not only on the Wrecker's Yard, where we have the basement in the center, and the first chase is about to start. Rocket finding the first survivor here, a little bit outscored on the ARP, not into safety, so that should be the first injury coming out relatively quickly onto Autumn Sadness in the corrupt area. That's good for Trauma here. They are now able to attack the generators and get a little bit of pressure in, but Autumn Sadness might be in a tough spot here, zoned a little bit into the corner of the AAP as well, with the pallet already gone.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that's really unfortunate about this map is you can have a lot of dead zones. We saw Autumn Sadness ran to one filler, oh, no pallet here. Ran to the cars behind main, oh, no pallet here. Well, I've got a jungle gym, but I'm gonna take a hit before I get to it. And after the pallet break on that jungle gym tile, she just had nowhere to go. Just really unlucky, and we're seeing that Rancor come in. It may seem like a little bit of overkill in combination with Noed, but on a map like ARP, where the positioning of survivors is so important, where it's so big, it can be hard to search it manually, the actual value of Rancor here is knowing where everyone is after that gen pop. Rocket knowing, okay, I know where everyone is, I can just stand here in this choke point, hold it, and I'm pretty sure that Swatter had direct line of sight on him, so the Rancor is not even revealed to them yet.
And that's going to be tough later on in this trial here. Autumn Sadness on the hook still, and we are reaching that second hook stage anytime soon. 20-25 seconds here for Team Trauma, and Rocket seems to be quite chill. He got the down fairly early on in the trial. He knows that he has the time to camp Autumn Sadness into the second stage. He will not be too worried about the gens on the bottom side there, instead focusing around the survivor that is hooked. As soon as we're reaching the second stage, we're setting up a portal here as well, expecting that a survivor would now come in, therefore going back onto the hook. No survivor around just yet though, so we might see Rocket pushing the survivor entirely into the elimination here, which would be a great spot for the Demogorgon to be in the 3v1 scenario, but Granout has different plans for Trauma and for the team member. Wants to save him, is slowly approaching onto the main building here. Rocket trying to scan the area, does it on the wrong side though, therefore Autumn Sadness now being saved. We will 100% see the tunnel out attempt right here, and now it's all about the question, how long is Trauma able to prevent that from happening?
I'm very curious about that. I thought for a second that he was trying to just check in on that one gen on his side of the map and decided, well, it's not progress high enough, I can afford to camp this to death. But then he was trying to cut off whoever the savior might be in that dead zone. Wasn't able to find them. They do get the save, but unfortunately, Mia is just not dying far enough away. Now they will break the 3 gens on both sides of the map. 2 gens popping at the same time, one on one side of the map, one on the other. There's no 3 gen left for Rocket. It is a 3v1, and there are 2 injuries, and they're very close to 1 gen actually. They're doubling the Shack gen. Now it's going to be seeing if Rocket can find a survivor who's out of position. He does see the scratch marks of, I believe, Ace. There's no blood here, so we will be having a 3rd survivor. And keep in mind, if you are Adam here, you are perma-exposed, perma-moriable in that last gen pop. They are a little bit unlucky that he's not the person that's being tunneled. Ace, however, as we've seen, has very little to work with over here. This pallet has already been dropped. There wasn't a whole lot of resources on the map to begin with. And he's going to be playing this window, but it's going to be very hard to actually work with that. Fred coming through the zoning now, and it will be a down. But they should be getting a lot of progress on that gen. They are doubling this one too.
They might even get it entirely, which is insane from the survivor team here. It brings ultimately the question up, was Rocket maybe a little bit too optimistic on the camp? Was he underestimating the generator pressure that Trauma would put up at the same time? These are the questions that we have towards Calamity here and towards Rocket, the killer player. Demogorgon going to take only the injury here. Perfectly timed adrenaline on the side of Trauma, going to the rotation though, because Swatter on the other here in a much more difficult position in the corner. Zarina though will be able to go topside. We 100% have a portal there. We have seen it earlier, so Rocket will just place it. 9, he does go for the ranker kill instead. Just a very quick award off the stages and entirely eliminated Survivor as well, taking the points here and potentially right after going for the teleport here. Now it's all about the time factor though, Cole. We can only hope that Trauma is going to be careful enough that they are able to make the correct choices here, because this can snowball very quickly into a 4K if you're not careful here.
Yeah, here's the problem. Both gates are on this side of the map, and even though the survivors were able to get the unhook, it took them a long time to get across that map, a lot less time than it takes Rocket with the portal. The Mori animation didn't take that long, so now they have to play this game where they can't even really reset because they're going to know that no enemies play. And Ace dies on his gate. Zarina should make this, so that will be a fresh out. But 3K9 is... Actually, she doesn't even make it. And apparently Rocket's head's not making it either. That is a very new and interesting spectator bug. That's a Demogorgon skin I'd like to see. But, you know, I feel like this is a set where you normally would like to see out. You should, but Rocket's endgame perks really coming through. Once that 3v1 kicked in, he had the leverage that he needed to punish the survivors there, and the gate RNG also working out very well for him. So 4K all, definitely a very respectable result for Rocket, and now this puts Trauma in a position, sorry, it puts Calamity Survivors in a position of, well, even one stage out and we win.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy what Rocket has delivered here in the final minute of the trial, from the ranker Mori into the teleport, losing his head and still finding the survivors afterwards. Very impressive how the killer is able to work around all that. As you mentioned, Trauma will be in a very difficult position now as a killer. It doesn't feel too good if nobody can escape the trial, and even if you prevent that on a weaker killer, you only reach the high condition. So you would need to go for a strong 3-gen. You need to figure out what 3-gen you're trying to play around. You need to get the hook stages inside of it, and then you need to be able to defend this 3-gen long enough into the 4K. And this would be the task here. So we have one generator standing in the upcoming trial and ultimately taking the win. But yeah, it will be one hell of a challenge for Team Trauma. Calamity has a good reason to be very confident after what Rocket has shown us. Definitely the proof that the Trauma team can be kept under control, and we will find out what's happening on the ARP with the Demogorgon. We will have Trauma on killer, Calamity on survivor, and we will show you that after a short break.
Alright folks, it is time for Wizzle's Rebuttal. We have the second game of our Demogorgon set against Calamity, and he will be playing for a 4K1. That is his win condition. Calamity, on the other hand, just need to get a single hook stage out the doors after popping all gens, and that should be very doable. But however, Azeroth's Resting Place is a fantastic map for playing to a 4K1. Wizzle will be checking around his corrupted generators, and he will be starting his chase onto Rocket, I believe. This looks like a Jake with a very interesting outfit, but no, we will be leaving him and finding a survivor who is running up the map, trying to start working on those gens. And it looks like we also do have a possible 4-gen bottom side, so Wizzle very comfortable holding this side of the map instead to try and play for that win con. And we've got Laser running into, no, this is Hein actually, who does have a pretty good loop here to play. Demogorgon has a long line tag that will zone Hein into this edge map. He does not have else. This could be a first tag onto him. He will make it to a rock filler, pre-drops that instantly, but with the shred power, Hein should be completely zoned into nothing after this break. It will be very difficult for him to make anything. He does have No pallet on this edge map, so this should be a very quick first down onto him. He's just going to go run edge map, try with the time he can. We do see one of his teammates, 2 teammates actually on this side of the map already working those generators, trying to break this 4-gen that they may have called out. Actually, they're doubling it, so they will be breaking one of these generators before that first hook. There is no painters available, so
that's very big pressure here on that first generator as well, getting it immediately in exchange for that first hook stage. Hein not with the longest opener in this trial, but Calamity saying, we have your back, we are on the objectives already. First generator being completed always feels great for a Survivor team that essentially just needs to take one stage out of the door. You can feel how you're progressing towards that win condition. Whistle is going back, decides to try and catch off one potential rescue, and just like in the previous trial, it is silent about the hook. Calamity doesn't want to take it too early. They don't want to allow Whistle to take injuries here, or even in worst case just take the trade and progress the hook stages. Instead, they are prioritizing the generators. We have a second one completed in a couple of seconds here already. For Whistle now, the time calculation starts. Will he have enough time to camp all the way into the elimination? I do think it is going to be the successful camp into the second stage, but will you go for the full elimination? Do you have enough time for it? You are chasing Marco at the same time, so Calamity might want to consider the pole now.
he does have the build for it. That forced hesitation pick basically signals what his game plan is. When you go for a 1-for-1, the forced hesitation slowdown makes it so difficult for the unhooked survivor to get anywhere. But there's no 1-for-1 here at all. This is a free hook. The chase and the tunnel out continues on to Hein, but they didn't have to sacrifice anything for it. And now we're chasing on the side of the map where the 3-gen's already been broken. They had a 4-gen here, it's gone. And we saw earlier that Laser had made his way to the other side of the map to break the 3-gens there. And if Whistle wants to try and hold these gen spreads, play for a 4K1, he needs to have that gen spread. ARP is a map where you really can't afford to chase far away, and the tunnel out here is very likely going to cost him that. We also have another survivor coming in for a possible body block once the dead zone happens, and a little bit of a fumble on the pallet break will buy Hein a little bit more distance, and we do see this teammate hovering at a respectful distance for the body block when it is needed. A third generator is completed, and it breaks the 3-gen on the other side of the map. This is a very, very rough situation for Whistle here.
Yeah, Hein on an absolute run of the gods here. And this is what can happen when the tunnel out plan doesn't work. Targeting one survivor is a really common strategy in comp, because this 3v1 scenario forces an entirely different game afterwards, and the survivors will be heavily limited on the generator pressure. But if you have a player like Hein who's saying, okay buddy, you might want to tunnel me out, but I'm gonna show you the entire ARP first, we're going a little bit on a safari, well then it's going to be even more difficult. These mind games are not going to work, because Hein can perfectly see the Demogorgon above it. He doesn't even need to drop the pallet immediately, therefore he can take a little bit of calculation distance. Even this shred is not coming out as well. Hein keeps going now to the top side. Safari continues. Demogorgon, go for the down, please.
I don't know if he can really afford to at this point. He's got 300 survivors, and these gens are so close. He basically has to pray for a chain slug if he wants to get his win con here. We do have 4 injured survivors now. They're gonna have to try and reset. Going into endgame, they want to make sure they play it slow. They need to get at least one of these survivors out, and they're very much in a position to do it as long as they play cleanly and just don't get snowballed on. Whistle does have some idea of someone over at this hill. Very likely the Balance Landings player, which would be Hein. No, actually it's Rocket, who will have a TL wall to play. We can barely hear him, he's just reading. And he dives corner at least. That will buy time for his teammates to reset. And now that will put Whistle in a very rough situation. Do I play to camp the survivor? Do I try to find the reset? Do I try to interrupt gens? Very difficult to decide, but trying to chase Rocket here, of all the survivors, this is probably the last one that you actually want to go for when you're on a time crunch. And he has adrenaline.
And there they go. No way. The adrenaline coming out. Even Whistle, not even with a slug here, able to go for the snowball. And look at Rocket saying, come here, little demo. I want to show you a little bit of the ARP as well. Trying to force the tunnel vision there, making sure that the Demogorgon is staying on him and the other survivors will be able to escape the trial. Calamity taking the first win in this first set, and this is not just by a stage call. This is not simply taking the first set point. This was dominance, and it still is dominance.
It's really funny here. You know, when you're running 1v1 ladder, as you know, after Rocket does occasionally.
Let's save. Let's save.
You do have this option of like, oh, what's my non-exhaustion going to be? Do I bring resilience? Do I bring window? You can bring urban against some killers. They just straight up gave Rocket 2 of those chase perks and said, have fun. And he ends up being the last chase there, and it really pays off for him. So very rough first set for Trauma, but they're going to have a chance to recover going into the unknown set. We did expect this Demogorgon set to go the way that it did, maybe not as severely, but unknown is where we need to see Trauma bring it back if they want to stay in this.
Absolutely, this is the chance for them, the last chance for them also in Season 9. Either it's Pokoseki today, or they're going into the playoffs. So Trauma, it's time to wake up, it's time to discuss the perfect strategy there. For the unknown, it is the set you wanted to bring in, so we hope you got something ready for us. Wrecker's Yard, ladies and gentlemen, after this break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on the Wrecker's Yard, and as you have seen in the map showcase, it can be a difficult environment for the survivors because of that very tough basement in the center. On the other hand, there are all the pallet safe and flashlight safe potentials, and we'll see if Calamity is playing around that on their survivor team with Hein, Pedro, Rocket, and Laser. Hein this time taking a very quick injury after going for such a long run on the Demogorgon in the previous trial, and that's not looking too good. That's a very fast down right next to the shack as well, and another injury. Cole.
That was forced hesitation value, and honestly a little bit of an unfortunate death spot from Hein, sort of running into the middle of the map near a teammate, although it looks like Rocket was trying to hover for a firecracker save, but also interrupting this shack gen, and this can be a basement hook that also interrupts gen progress. Laser does have a gen at half progress, and I'm very curious about this build. I don't think the survivors were expecting forced rotation. We've seen a lot of unknown recently, and practically everyone is indexing into these really heavy hex totem focused builds. Wiggle doesn't have a single one, instead opting for Agi, Eruption, Force Hesitation. Very strange. The resets will be coming in that will interrupt their gen progress, and we see Hein being carried possibly into this basement. It should be basement, not quite enough to wiggle out thanks to agitation, and will be watched from here. That force hesitation can easily come in clutch on the 1-for-1 on the unhook, but now the survivors crucially know it's in play. They will be playing around it as the first gen pops, but Whistle has a pretty ridiculous gen spread around this shack.
So far, it was an insane match by Whistle. I'm even more surprised how Calamity got back into structure afterwards, because we had a lot of danger there. It almost looked like a speed run on 5 generators going for the 4K5 there. So the fact that Calamity is now all back onto healthy survivors, Hein halfway towards the second stage and the generator being completed, shows the insane team coordination that we have on the side of Calamity there, and how they are able to deal with difficult circumstances. Exactly what we've talked about in the campfire chat as well. Really insane to see that on the side of Calamity. 50% on the fun bus over here. Laser was trying to go for the unhook, returns to his generator as well. So we have 2 gens on 50%. That means 45 seconds until we have this objective completed. Hein will be on the hook for 60 more seconds since he just advanced to the second stage. So theoretically, we could go into the elimination and be on 2 gens remaining, which doesn't sound too bad for the survivor side.
It doesn't. I don't think you really want to afford to camp fully, especially on a killer who has a map teleport like the Unknown. Now, of course, survivors can dispel that, so possibly playing around that, maybe just want to secure this, and with Eruption, be really confident going into the 3v1. Now, Unknown is a set that's very free for Salmon. We see this set being a 4K very, very consistently, but every now and then we will have Unknowns that just kind of get destroyed. They get maybe only a handful of hook stages, so Wizzle being in a position where he could be on that 4K side of things, but the question will be, how many gens pop for it? Now as the 3v1 is starting, we have 3 healthy but weakened survivors, and that can be very dangerous in these chases, as Laser will be the next one in these fights, getting hit by that UVX, and where does he have to go from here? I don't think you make anything, especially with the teleport coming in. And another basement hook right around the corner. This is not where Laser wanted to die. He does have a teammate to finish that gen possibly, but actually Wizzle dragging him closer to that gen in the pocket, but the gen will pop for it, so this might have backfired onto Wizzle, who very well may be wishing that he had gone for the basement hook instead.
Laser now being thrown onto the hook here, and Hein being eliminated. The game will be slowing down now. The Survivor team does not have so much pressure onto the gens any longer. One survivor on the hook, one needs to go for the rescue, and if Wizzle is chasing the third, well then the generators are temporarily dropping down to 0, and Rocket going to take the injury here. Wizzle is not sleeping on the Unknown. Now we know that would have been insane with the tree right there. Luckily though for the Calamity survivors, they have taken a little bit of distance, but Rocket is going down right here. Laser is too far away, but we still see that Wizzle wants to put up a little bit of additional pressure. Will teleport. It's one of his illusions, and we do see Laser able to dodge this one by holding W. Will we see the second down right here? They are together in the same spot as well. The third survivor is also coming in. Calamity playing now in 1/4 of the Wrecker's yard. We can only hope that they are having something in mind here.
I mean, that teleport really cut Laser off, and all these survivors are being zoned away from anything. Now we do have Sprinters coming in for Rocket, but he's still zoned here. He doesn't make anywhere with it. Wizzle playing for the tag onto Pedro now will mean that all 3 survivors are injured. That will make these snowballs, especially with teleports, much, much more threatening. And I want to point out, we have been seeing both survivor teams from Calamity and from Trauma playing the macro game very, very cleanly. The difference that was made for Calamity in the previous set was the chases were going so much better for Rocket than they were for Wizzle, but Wizzle is having a much better time on this Unknown. The chases are being much shorter, the mechanics are looking a lot more comfortable, and it's dropping Calamity survivors much more quickly on top of the macro game being clean. Now Wizzle has to go for it down here very quickly because this gen spread is not as good as he'd like for it to be, but he's a little bit disoriented on where the survivors are. The full reset comes in for both Rocket and for Laser and Pedro, but he will find Pedro right after, so back to 2 injuries, 2 weekends as well, 3 weekends and now, and Wizzle playing for a little bit more of a hit and run in this 3v1.
This is so on edge. This is one of these trials that can flip in 5 seconds. If the survivor team is not careful and if they are taking too much risk, they might be in a snowball very soon. On the other hand, Wizzle just needs to one time overcommit to a chase and miscalculate a little bit on what the survivor team is able to do in the time he's spending in the chase, and then we're going to have the generators flying. Laser not able to get rid of the status effect too soon. Unfortunately, it was just a 5% remaining, but will take the injury, which is bringing us back to the question, will we see the reset of the survivor team? Will they spend some time onto that mind game on the TNL double vault? Not going to be successful. Rocket going down onto the floor, and Wizzle once again scouting at least the area before going for the pickup, so we can tell both teams don't want to give each other the slightest millimeter here. I don't think we're going to see something risky like a pallet rescue here in the track, and that's going to be another basement hook, which will be hard to deal with. on the Survivor side, that's for sure. Laser and Pedro at least going for the full reset, so Weasel's pressure a little bit denied. On the other hand, gens are towards 0. Survivor team is busy. Paul, I feel like Weasel is slowly taking the advantage here.
Absolutely. It's been a hot minute since Survivor could work on gens. They've had to spend the past, I don't know, maybe 4-ish minutes trying to just help each other out, keep their health states up, and it has been at the cost of all gen progress. You know, they had popped like 2 gens right after another. They were in a very dire situation. They have recovered from it, but this is where they might have forgotten about forced Hezi. This could be a 1-for-1 onto Laser. Actually, the UVX doesn't go through. This is kind of backfiring. Rocket might be able to get out of here. Wizzle definitely trying to keep him in here, but Laser will be body blocking for his teammate. That will get both of us out of the basement. All the weekends are down, so Wizzle has to play for an M1 here if he wants to fast down. It will not happen. He does spot Pedro Hertz out working on this generator. He's in a little bit of a dead zone. Actually, no, he's got 2 reasonable filler powers here, but he's trying to play around the weekend. It will end up affecting him anyway. Zoned a little bit towards the edge map. He does have a maze pallet he can make his way to. It is a seawall, but he gets down before he can make the pallet. Wizzle comfortable slugging, trying to find where that reset might be happening. He knows Rocket and Laser were on it. He sees Rocket being healed. Laser not anywhere in sight. The tag coming back onto Rocket. Now we're, again, no healthy survivors. No weakened at least, but still, the recovery has to come in yet again. No gen progress to show for it, except what we saw Pedro on earlier.
It's so rough for the Survivor team. Laser is also trying to drag Wizzle away from the action, but Wizzle is not taking the bait. He knows exactly how many seconds he has playing around this pallet here as well before going into the break. We do see the flashlight coming in clutch here. Wizzle actually losing track for a moment of where Rocket exactly is, but it's going to be the UVX applied straight again, and that should be the down. Not entirely yet. Rocket instead going to reach the window, and we are switching over again, making sure that the survivors will not even get close towards the active generator. All 3 survivors back to being injured. The reset of Calamity completely denied here. Pressure rising from Wizzle once more. It is great to watch here in terms of the killer gameplay. Perfect management of the resources of the survivors, how much freedom and how much space we're giving to them, and on the other hand, not over pressuring, not over committing, and always wondering, hey, there are some generators that they might want to go for, catching this reset in time as well. Now deciding that it's time to progress the hook stages, not taking too much risk as well, because he realizes that the agitation will make him able to go for the next basement hook here. Wizzle is showing us peak micromanagement on the killer, on the unknown. It's beautiful to watch. Calamity is fighting Cole. They have made a comeback from so many difficult situations. Even the early game was already difficult. Yet they are only fighting right now with what Wizzle is able to put on their shoulders, and it's getting more and more hard for them.
Yeah, that's the forced hesitation right there. Unfortunately, Rocket was weakened when he ran down the basement stairs, so he did not have time to dispel that hallucination. The Wizzle content to just pick Rocket, put him on a second hook, and what we're seeing here is exactly why Unknown is such a consistent 4K in most of the games that we get it. It is such a stranglehold on the game at this point. And look at this gen spread. We've got Shaq, we've got this gen. There's a hill right next to all of it, so Wizzle can honestly just sit on top of that hill and have such good vision on what's happening here. The survivors just don't ever have time to do anything. They're having to spell hallucinations, they're having to heal each other, but they also kind of have to follow the chase to remove their weekend. But the chases are happening so quickly because Wizzle is spotting them on the reset. And during the reset or shortly after, they're just never in a good time position. As now, Laser might be taking a UVX tag here, he will not be, but remember, once this pallet is broken, there's nothing here for him. Wizzle is just everywhere, and it's very difficult to track where he is at any given point. As now, Rocket is in his sights. Looks like Rocket was positioning to try and maybe pick up Pedro in that basement, but it could cost him his life here. He's on death hook. but the 99 Sprint Burst will save him at this Jungle Gem pallet. Wizzle's still looking to commit because 2 downs is something he has not had so far, if memory serves. That will be second down. All he has to do now is find Laser and secure that 4K2, and Laser is in his sights. This should be the last chase of the game, unless he's able to pull an absolute miracle out of that. I don't even know what that element thing on his back is called.
Oh, that's not something you have to ask me with the vocabulary. I struggle sometimes, so we will just call it thing on the back. And that's going to be Laser with the final chase right here, taking the status effect of the UVX, and that's going to potentially come into a quick anti-whistle, even going for a little bit of a standstill mind game and bringing it to an end. Cole, I will be very honest with you, I'm not sad for Calamity here, because I would love to see the nurse tiebreaker, that's for sure. And if you are asking me, then Trauma just put themselves in the perfect spot to get the second set, taking the second set point and pushing us into the nurse set, because a 4K2 is an incredible result. Essentially, the Calamity killer would now need to 4K on 3 gens remaining, which is so unrealistic, I'm just going to name it, since we have Trauma on the Survivor team and they are experienced for years in the comp scene. Of course, it's not impossible, yet I do think I speak for a lot of people. We would love to see Nurse tiebreaker.
Oh, absolutely, and I almost wonder if there's a world where Calamity's unknown player just plays for the 4K. That's alright, he's gonna win Nerf. Let's just not revisit this, because that seems a little bit more realistic than playing for a 4K3 specifically. Even though, of all the killers we have where, okay, could 4K3 be reasonable for them? I feel like Unknown is one of the better killers to play for a 4K3. But the fact that the Survivor team of Trauma will know, look, we just need to pop 4 gens rather, and then we're good. That makes it so much easier to actually play around this. You don't need to worry about greeting for altruism if you can just crank those gens. But also, that early tunnel out on the Hein really just spelled the disaster for this game. The 3v1 was the majority of this game, and it did not work out well for Calamity. So Trauma really just playing to not have a teammate die super early in the game, and more importantly, not die in the basement that early in the game.
Yeah, that will make a huge difference. The early game was definitely a deciding factor. Even though Calamity recovered from the early game, it used quite some time, it used a little bit of resources, and it was hectic, and Whistle certainly took quite some advantage of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Calamity will switch to the killer side now on the Wrecker's Yard. It will be Trauma will be on the Survivor side and Calamity will be on the killer side. That's the right way around, and we will have the upcoming trial with this huge win condition. Let's see how it's going to be played out.
Alright, folks, we are back. Second game of the unknown set. We've got Rocket facing a very steep win condition. It was a 4K2 in the last game, and a very, very convincing 4K2. Now it's time to see if the survivors of Trauma can step up to the plate the exact same way that their killer player did. We've got 2 survivors, I believe, running around this jungle gym palette in the Corrupted Gens. The UVX tag will come in on to escape. That weekend will be happening, and Rocket is zoning him into this corner of the map as well, trying to launch some UVXs over the tile to maybe get a, an artillery strike on him, basically. But Ace doing a good job passing around this and not getting injured by the UVX. This should be a hit here, and the broken add-on coming in as well that will be revealed. You also have a much more Hex-heavy build than we had the previous game with Ruin and Pentimento very standard, but also the Noed, which is a little bit unusual and obviously not very valuable here, as ESC will be going down at that edge map palette. We got the survivors doubling this gen. They should be able to stop this for that first chase.
Here we have the first hook stage again for the first generator, so the same trade-off basically as in the previous trial, 50% on this generator as well. Rocket going for a little bit of sniping, not going to be successful though. And now it's going to be a completely different game, because you're not going to... Ooh, Swatter taking one right there, but you're not playing for the normal how good can I perform? You are playing with the condition that you need a 4K with just one more generator being completed. That's at the back of Rocket's mind here, and with that, it's so much more difficult to play the trial. Rocket staying a little bit between the generator and the hook stage does make a lot of sense here. If you're asking me, you don't want to just stand next to the hook. In this case, the survivors would just smash the generators. And if you only push the survivor off every single time without hitting them, it's still going to be a few seconds delay on that generator over there. And who knows, maybe this little bit of time win is giving you the difference to force a tie condition here in this trial.
Yeah, this is the last gen that can fly and still have a win condition for Rocket. I don't think he's going to be able to hold more than that. Honestly, the win condition is just so rough. It should be a set win for Trauma here, unless there is a little bit of an accident on an unhit situation. We have seen that in the past, but I doubt Trauma survivors will be making that mistake. Rocket trying to just hold the ace to death here, honestly, with that UVX out, is able to almost play this killer like Huntress, if Huntress was fun. You know, being able to sit on a hill, pressure the survivor you've hooked, but also pressure the gens and try and slow them down while making the altruism so difficult to play for. That is what Rocket's going for. We have had a third generator pop, so now at a tie at a minimum for Trauma, as Ace dies on hook in just a second here, and now the chase onto Autumn Sadness around the Shen. There is a hallucination here as well that has been pre-set up, but the teleport being on cooldown means there will be a little bit of safety here, and it's interesting to me that in his second chase of the game, Rocket is still playing around this dropped long wall pallet. I would have figured... Sorry, it's a short wall pallet, but I would have figured this is something that you'd want to break. Rocket, with the confidence to play around it anyway, saying, you know what, I can hit you with my teleport, I can hit you with my UVX, I don't need to break this, but he will be taking the tag onto Nia and leaving, knowing he has to sell pressure. This gen is dangerously close to popping.
Yeah, and this would be the tie condition right now. Will we see one more gen being completed? That would already mean that Trauma is taking the win here. Looking good so far for them. Rocket also under pressure here. Can't take a lot of time to go for aiming on the UVX. He has to take the shots that he can somehow get, and this can also lead to a miss. We are going back towards the fun bus. One survivor hiding here in the filler pallet. Rocket is able to not able to go for an injury here either. So you can tell there's pressure on the shoulders of Calamity's killer. He has to go for some snipes. He has to go for something risky. Otherwise, he's going to ultimately lose anyways. Water is getting the status effect off just because an injury could come through, and Rocket not even hitting the shot that is coming out afterwards. Trauma playing dominant. It is a completely different Trauma compared to the first set, and if Trauma manages to be dominant here, Cole, this could be very dangerous for the tiebreaker as well. When a strong, confident Survivor team is playing against the Nurse, that can have quite some dynamic here. So Rocket, even if he will not be able to stop that fourth generator, which is the case here, he now better gets a 4K for his team.
Yeah, this can be a huge momentum shift in the favor of Trauma, but one thing I find interesting here is, although we've seen Rocket and Wizzle playing killer for both teams so far, I know for a fact it's going to be Laser Nerf for Calamity, and I believe for Trauma it's ESC or Autumn Sadness who typically play Nerf, so the killer players that we have seen are not who we'd expect to see in the Nerf set, so a little bit of a mental reset in that regard, but certainly for Trauma survivors, a dominant win on their survivor side going into the next game where it will be their survivors against Calamity Nurse. That's definitely a huge confidence boost if they're able to get a really, really good result here, and they are efficient to do that as Swatter taking chase around Shaq. Firecracker not quite giving him what he was hoping for, but he will just be taking an M1 tag here, doing a good job of pathing, at least to not be UVX. If you're going to be taking a tag anyway, you may as well take it without the weakened status. Rocket trying to launch artillery at this Shen. He's been trying to hold for quite some time now. We do see Zarina sort of stealthing around it. Grenout positioning to pop that last Gen if given any moment to do so. Swatter and Autumn Sadness, however, possibly looking to reset as Grenout greaves that pallet. Now this is the side of the pallet where Rocket has visibility, so the UVX really powerful here, but another M1 coming in. Now we've got 3 injuries and a possible weekend, but no, the Thompson is doing a fantastic job of dodging this. as Rocket tries to bait it, and it will possibly get him a tag. No, it does not. And we got Shaq also being progress. Stun for Gren out. So much is happening so fast.
There's so much happening right here. All survivors also injured, so they also need to make sure now that they are taking an out somehow and not going to become too greedy. As you say, it's important. Oh, someone call the deaths on that hit. That must have looked very, very ugly on the screen of Autumn Sadness. But as you talked about it, the momentum shift definitely possible here. So Trauma wants to take that final generator. They would need to take some outs here to show, just like in the Demogorgon set, listen up, it's not just one generator distance between us, it is more than that. But ultimately now Rocket able to go for more. It is going to be all generators completed, but Rocket will very likely take the 4K here. We have one more chase whatsoever. There is the pickup onto Autumn Sadness. No, so we are switching the 1v1 chase that is going to come up here on this final final chase of the game. They are even setting it up a little bit here on this pallet. Who's going to stay the winner on this? Rocket, one of the most successful ladder players, will try to get them down as quick as possible, and it's not going to be a long run for Autumn Sadness. Congratulations to Team Trauma for going into the tiebreaker with us, taking the second set point right there. We are moving on to the nurse on the Cole Tower. Cole, now we are here with the 1-1. You said earlier Calamity will take it. Now we have a very confident Trauma team. Does your prediction change in any way?
I don't think it does. I do think Laser should be slightly favored going into this final set. If nothing else, I believe the rest of the teams agree with me. We're seeing so many nurse bans against Calamity. So many teams just do not want to deal with Laser's nurse. A little bit less of a respect being given over to Trauma's nurse, so I'm gonna go with the experts on that one.
Crazy trial ahead of us. Crazy tiebreaker coming in. I'm not so sure about Calamity any longer, because I do believe strong into team chemistry. I do believe strong into motivation that you gain throughout the games. And yeah, Calamity looked very strong on the Demogorgon, but that is 50 minutes ago. That is a little bit ago, and there I said, well, Calamity is already here, but Trauma has made such an impressive comeback, and they have played an unknown trial here that was much more confident, much more organized, and it felt like they had their plan always one step ahead. Even though they are getting 4K here, I feel like we've seen a different approach on the Survivor side, and Nurse is a set that is drastically decided based on how the Survivor team is feeling. When you don't have a lot of freedom on the Survivor side, when you're constantly under pressure, you need confidence and you need a good mindset. And for me, Trauma has that a little bit stronger here, so we might see the surprise continuing and Trauma taking that on the Call Tower. Ladies and gentlemen, we will set that up. We will have Trauma staying on the Survivor side. Calamity will be the killer, most likely with Laser, as we discussed. Let's find out who's going to take the win here. Whoa. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Call Tower with Cole on the casting desk and me as well. I don't fit in here based on the name, but I can still try to tell you a little bit about Calamity and Trauma. It has been a roller coaster so far, coming from a dominant game or dominant first set for Calamity on the Demogorgon into a dominant game for Trauma. We have talked about it. Cole still sees Calamity in a little bit of a stronger place here. I'm rooting for Trauma by now based on the change we have seen. First injury though for Laser coming out. Good start so far. Now going over to look a little bit after the gens here. What is always the greatest thing to see for a Survivor team would be one gen in exchange for the first hook stage. And so far, Laser had the injury, but after that, not too much going on here.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we often see Survivor teams doubling, even tripling the first gen in these S tier sets, knowing, all right, here we have it. Survivor's doubling a gen on that hill. They want to make sure they get that first gen popping, and the chases being so consistently so fast in these S tier sets, you have no other choice. Adam's got a gen at 50%. They will most likely pop this generator before that first hook, unless Laser goes directly there. Actually, no, I don't think he's got time. He'll fatigue, and they will pop this gen. So we'll be on 4 gens with the second one coming shortly thereafter. Ruin not quite being able to regress that, but Laser looks like he has a pretty decent gen spread. He's got a loose 3 gen on bottom side and a loose 3 gen on top side, classic PT top side 3 gen that he can hold. That gen that they popped does prevent any possible 4 gens, of course. And now Laser's trying to catch out the Survivors who just popped that hill gen. That should buy Swatter some time to pop his gen near Shack as well. And we actually will see Swatter caught out on the rotation to go for the pull. So quite possibly someone else has picked up his generator, and that was in fact the case. We're now at 3 gens remaining with only 1 hook stage.
Laser trying to go for the next injury here is a little bit too optimistic on the swing onto Swatter. Is it nervousness here because Calamity was expecting to 2-0 and now they are 1 set in the playoffs or 1 set gone from the playoffs? That's the difficult question right here. They get the pull call almost for free. There is no trade even needed. No Survivor is slugged, and as you mentioned, 2 gens already completed. Not looking too good for Calamity and Laser here. That is not the confident performance we were looking for ultimately though, and luckily we are quickly getting the next down, but 50% over here as well, 40% on this generator. So Trauma is on these objectives. They want to get them out as quick as possible, and Laser running a little bit after the Survivors of Team Trauma. Rehook, very nice location though, right here behind the main building. Difficult to access for the Survivor team and difficult to get away from the main building after rescue has been happening. So a little bit of an opportunity for Laser, but I'm still worried. I gotta be honest with you.
Laser with the game sense to find Ace, trying to stealth for that poke. He also does see Adam running through the main building. It's gonna cost Trauma Survivors if they want to go for this pull into Autumn Sadness. And Laser at this point knows this Nias has no anti-tunnel whatsoever. If this is a 1-for-1, this can be absolutely disastrous. Nias the Survivor with Unbreakable, not really the one that you want to be 1-for-1. Sprint Burst will come in to buy her some distance. A 3rd generator is completed, but Laser is hot on her trails, and is she able to get away? She does juke the first set of blinks here. Will she be able to find somewhere to go? But she's being pushed sort of back to where Swatter is. They need to get a pickup onto Swatter, but the gen pressure is building up. Drenout should not be the one going for these saves. It should be ESC, who I believe was the one selling earlier. Autumn Sad is trying to buy as much time as possible for these resets to come in for this death. You do not want to go into the 3v1 with 200 survivors. And the rune's broken as well. That will allow Laser to index into Eruption with Dying Light in this endgame.
Wow. Autumn Sadness did such a good job here delaying this chase, and there's the triple from Trauma coming out. Generator number 4 has been completed just when we have the elimination. That is not what you're looking for as a nurse. Usually we have the elimination and the tunnel out much earlier in the trial, and now let's take a look on this difficult generator setup that we have. It's not the good one anymore that Laser really wanted to go for. Even this one doesn't want to connect. Laser, we need some downs, we need some switches, because now the 3-gen looking quite weak. We have 1 generator that's all the way pulled down next to the locks here. Oh, Cole, how do you adjust your strategy now? You can no longer play for the 3-gen. It was Laser's game plan. This game plan just broke into pieces based on the survival performance that we had from Team Trauma. How do you continue from now onwards? How are you approaching this? Do you give up on it and just try to get 1 survivor down in any location?
I think you basically have to play around a survivor mistake here. Laser's gonna know, okay, they tripled that gen to break the topside 3-gen, because if they went into that 3v1 with that 3-gen intact, it would be very, very rough for them. But now they have a good gen spread. They should be playing for the reset onto Zarina, but it appears they were not. So this down could cost them, but it's only her first hook. Laser might just be playing for a chain slug here, because at least it's a little bit harder to play around pickups, to play around hook saves with this in play, but I think Laser is being a little bit paranoid that they might be doubling one of these last gens like they had tripled the previous one. I'm pretty sure he would not be expecting them to just full send it on that gen. I think he was expecting a reset, and yeah, we've got Swatter stealthing around this gen, but the pickup on Grenout will also, and the full reset, that's going to be very difficult. Now, 3 healthy survivors in this 3v1 with a good gen spread is exactly where Trauma wants to be. This is a little bit out of hand for Laser.
It is, unfortunately, and in this position you don't want to be in the tiebreaker that decides over you going in the playoffs or not. In a normal match, okay, relying on a survivor mistake is what these players are used to, especially on the weaker killers though. Not technically on the nurse, but when you are fighting for the playoffs, qualification or not, then you really don't want to be dependent on any survivor mistake. Quick injury onto Swatter. We need this down. It needs to happen right here. This needs to be a successful double blink. It is. Is this the comeback for Laser taking such a quick down? He does look towards the other generator, but then he decides to go for the pickup, trying to also get a little bit more stacks on the Dying Light. Any little bit of time win and any piece of slowdown can now help Laser. 4 stacks there already. Going to the generator over here. Eruption could be applied in a moment, and yeah, that's something we're really needing now. The help from the perks. A little bit of slowdown with Dying Light. Eruption helping a little bit as well. And in best case, we would catch someone going for the unhook or someone next to these generators, just as we do right here, seeing the scratch marks around. That is another chance for Laser to make a potential turn.
They do get the unhook for this chase, but this means for Laser, he knows that they are spending all their resources on, well, not gens right now. That was an extremely quick reset, giving him some heads up. Okay, Ace is going to have botany knowledge, he's going to have Will Make It, maybe Swatter's got, you know, Resurgence Leader or something like that. But that was an extremely fast reset, which is a light of hope for the Survivor team here. But they did have some progress on that gen that's far away from him. Yeah, and Dying Light as well. This is slowly piling up, and Laser in a position to just slowly grind a win out. All he has to do is hold these gens, and the survivors have to play around their health states very, very carefully. If another survivor dies here, yeah.
Alright, it's tricky now because Trauma is allowing Laser to take much more dominance now. They are allowing Laser to go for more injuries, for slugs as well, even here. So Trauma, with the 2 very unexpected and very fast double blinks that were absolute masterclass by Laser, put into a position where they are definitely struggling. At least it's a little bit more noticeable than before. However, Laser needs to be careful with the time calculation on his side, because if he goes too far, they might get spotted for free. He is teleporting back. Survivor hold back as well, which means that Ace was not working on the generator for the past 20 seconds as he tried to rotate all the way towards the top side here, going for the pickup, which is a good sign now for Laser. He will see Escape over there as well and knows that no one has worked on the generator. So a little bit one hook stage for free almost, and in 60 seconds you're playing the 2v1. So Laser's making an impressive comeback for Calamity at the moment.
And crucially, this hook is close to that high progress gen. So Laser knows, well, if I even camp this guy out, oh, we got eyes on birds. He knows Survivor was here recently, possibly stealthing edge map for that pull. But yeah, if you just camp out this hook, you know they just do not have time, even if they're doubling, to finish that last gen with these 6 stacks of Dying Light, because the only progress gen is right within your grasp. And we've seen them just starting that gen far away from here. Ace on that while Zarina self-resets with a medkit. But Laser just has the time to camp Slaughter Death, very calculated on managing how much time do I have in terms of blink sets, how much time do I have in terms of the hook, how much time do I have in terms of these generators, and really playing very calculated, as Zarina will be 1-for-1ing for this, and that's another Dying Light stack, that's an Eruption proc. And yeah, he's going to go for this hook and possibly check on the other generators to make sure that those are not being worked in the background.
Now going cross map again as quick as we can, trying to go and stop that generator. Not even entirely sure if he needs to be that worried about that generator, but checking it is certainly a good idea. Grenade immediately rescued after Laser went for said generator. Escape is the one who they could bring into chase next, because he would be able to have a little bit of hang time. Granite and Swatter are much in danger here, since they are going to be removed from the trial with the next hook stage that's coming in. 50% on the generator over here, so difficult calculations now for Laser, who is now trying to get the down onto Swatter. Will he have enough time for that though? That's the question. The answer is no. Laser already rotating back towards the generator over here. Trauma is playing it slow, and Trauma is playing it very smart, always pulling back as soon as they can, trying to hide it out. If Laser will not be able to find the survivor attacking the generator and then hiding afterwards, he will not get the needed pressure onto Trauma. They will double up in the meanwhile. Now Escape freely going back onto the generator. So based on what we see right here, I would say it's realistic that Trauma even goes for generator number 5 and will be successful with that.
Yeah, it sounds like that they're trying to protect ESC.
No!
They want to make sure they can get that fresh out. They want to protect him. They don't really care if, well, okay, if our Jessica Driver, yeah, trying to force basement, but actually baiting him into dropping down, and this, I would drop Shack out there, honestly, just to buy a little more time. Swatter running to double this gen with ESC. Granite except he's going to die in the corner, but I think Laser is leading that chase, trying to go back to the gen, because you can sort of anticipate, based on where the survivor is running, what the other survivors are trying to do. If you see, oh, Zarina's running this corner, okay, they're pressuring the other corner, I need to be there right now, and it might be a little too late now. Laser is seeing the survivor running away. The firecracker blind from around the corner is insane, but the scratch mark still will give Laser an idea of where ESC is going, and this is the survivor he's looking for. It's a fourth fresh hook, but still, this is the Obsession. You're not going to get Dying Light value out of it. This is the DS survivor, and it's the only survivor who is not on death hook. You would almost want to get someone just straight up dead at this point, but also an eruption proc waiting to happen.
Comp corner, it is the famous comp corner right here, and that will be generator number 5 coming out. Laser will not reach over here in time, and that itself is already setting the tone. The fact that Calamity now has to escape in the upcoming trial to take the win is putting a huge pressure. Usually we are talking about the generator condition on the nurse on the call tower, and now you even have the chance that the stage is running out of the door, so then it would be forced, and you cannot even go for all gens and take the tie and then replay the nurse here. We will see in a second how many stages will go out of the door, but Cole, I am a little bit worried about Escape here, the fresh hook, so I would hope that Laser is dropping chase, going back towards the top side, because you want Ace onto the hook here from Adam or Zarina. You're not taking any profit at all, so Laser realizing that as well, potentially coming a little bit too late. Adam is leaving now, will be ignored though. We need this Ace.
Yeah, I think Laser was maybe hoping that he would be able to interrupt that gen, or at least now slug for a 4K all. As Zarina's finished resetting herself, that will make this a little bit more difficult. The first hook here coming in onto ESC will be nice, but you really want to try and get a 4K here out of this. The gate spawns are a little bit difficult to defend, and Grenout is on that gate. He surely will be able to get it. Water now needs to be reset, but I think they may opt to let ESC die on hook and get their 2 stages out. But we shall see. Laser holding a blink towards Swatter, might be able to cut it off. I don't think he's going to have distance. They can't play for a hatch escape onto Swatter just yet, because ESC has some time left on that hook for now, as Laser can just hold this hill and keep tabs on every survivor on the map at once.
This is now, I mean, it looks a little bit like Trauma wants to take a pull or something. I don't know why they are not gone and out of here yet and take some holidays with the few hook stages even, because taking outs, as we said, on the call tower with the nurse is insane already. Escape going into the second stage soon. Zarina waiting over here. They are actually going for the pole, and it's going to be 1 second too late. Escape going into the second stage. Very unfortunate. So now it doesn't really matter if it's going to be Swatter or Escape going down onto the floor here. That was a very nice attempt if they only would have made it 1 second earlier. Zarina should be safe. She's healthy and next to that other exit door as well. So I do think we'll see one more stage here. But Cole, this is something that we have seen kind of often in the trial. Laser seems to be a little bit too ambitious overall, and I think this puts some punishment on him as well.
Yeah, there should still be 10 stages for him. It would be very difficult for ESC to get out of here. Maybe he's pathing towards Shaq to go for a hatch play. They are trying to give it to him. He has to dodge the second of the blink. And it does not come through, so this will be that 10 stages being secured, but a very good attempt from Trauma to try and eke out that extra escape on, well, escape. But it will not quite pan out, so going into what should be the final game of this match, we're looking to see if Calamity survivors can get 3 stages out of the trial. That is a much taller ask. Popping all 5 gens in the first place is a little bit of an ask, but we should expect, hey, if you're on a team with Laser, if you've got Laser in the call with you, that should at least give you some confidence playing against Nurse from a macro perspective, but will the chases be able to hold up is what we're looking to see.
Yeah, this is... I don't know, like, it was very unfortunate. Like, Laser gambled. I think it's fair to say Laser gambled on quite some chases there, and he was going for multiple ambitious swing, I feel like. And I understand it, you are under pressure, and certainly if a few of them are connecting and you are getting Trauma survivors unexpectedly onto the ground, you take a huge profit. But looking at the entire trial, I feel like Laser was a little bit too much on the risky side, and against Trauma, it was ultimately not the right decision to play. I feel like the fact that we're seeing stages walking out of the door here is a result of the risk that Laser has taken. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think Laser was just really caught off guard by that decision to triple that gen. And that was what really broke that 3v1 scenario. If that had not happened, we would have been looking at a 4K1 almost guaranteed, but Trauma survivors full sent it, it paid off, and they played around that 3v1 very cleanly, always making it so that Laser had no good options. If you down the survivor here when you're committing to this chase, they're so far away from everything else that you just lose so much time on the gens, and he was just pulled apart in all directions.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough though. You need to take some risk, then the other team is able to keep you in check, punishing you for that even, and the pressure is so high in this best of 3 since we're playing for the playoffs yet. Feeling bad a little bit for Calamity here, but unfortunately we need to find a team that is going into the playoffs. We have one more trial, guys. Calamity on Survivor. They will need to deliver us an almost perfect Survivor trial, and Trauma will be on the killer. We will switch sides and we will be back for you in just a moment.
Welcome back, folks. What is very likely going to be the final deciding game of Calamity versus Trauma, deciding who is going to be our 4th team in the playoffs. We have Autumn Sadness on the Nurse, trying to make sure that Calamity survivors can get no more than 1 hook stage out that door. Ideally, of course, playing for a little bit more than that. We'll see some scratch marks very on in the game, but not quite having eyes on who made those scratch marks. Surmising they're outside their seawall. It will be a tag onto Hein, and very unlucky for Hein being the first chase in every single game Calamity has played today.
We can only hope that they are having everything together on their end, and that the first down is delayed somehow against the Nurse, that the gens are flying, that Behavior is releasing a patch mid-game that is pushing the gens down to 60 seconds completion time. Something like a miracle needs to be happening here against Autumn Sadness on the Nurse. So far, Calamity is looking strong, though. Hein with the injury, and after that, we haven't taken a second injury just yet, and a whiff onto Pedro as well. Cole, I like what I see so far. Props to Calamity.
Oh yeah, and Hein also making the heads up play to get reset as soon as they just realized Nurse has broken chase. If there's one thing we've seen from Calamity, is that it's a very smart team. Usually when things go badly, it's off the back of bad chases. So they will be popping their first gen without that first hook coming in. Undetectable means Pedro Hertz will have a little bit of a hard time tracking this nurse, but he is able to position in such a way that she cannot two-tap him with those blinks. He will be making his way up the map on the edge of it. Should be a down, connecting just the tip, and he's right next to this reset. Autumn Sadness does not seem to realize that reset's happening right there, so they do get it off. And this will be the first hook with about the same gem progress as we had in the previous game. But will it be the Deliverance player who has been hooked as we had in the last game? Will be a huge game changer if it's someone else, especially if it's a Head Tunnel Survivor. And
Sorry.
Yeah, checking the build.
I was hyped.
Yeah, checking the builds. Pedro Hertz is the DS survivor, and he's got Sprint Burst, so very difficult survivor to tunnel out here. Laser, being our Deliverance player, will be the one looking to go for this, and that puts Calamity survivors in a really good spot from a macro perspective, even with this hook being in probably the best spot for a Nurse player.
Damn, Cole, that was what I wanted to touch on! The position of the hook. That's why I got so excited, because I was like, it needs to be said. And then, but yeah, it is what really matters here. The location where you die, even if it's sometimes only one stage, can do more damage than anything else. And since this is going to be a trade, we do have 60 seconds earned for the survivor side. On the other hand, we are still in that location, but Autumn Sadness not even allowing the survivor team of Calamity to just go for that, instead going to chase Pedro here. Unfortunately for the Nurse, it will be the decisive strike player, so picking up this survivor will cause more loss, and we do see very wonderful two split survivors on the top side, one on the left, one on the right. The pickup comes for free with the UB. The whiff coming out. Cole, there's so much happening and I need my meds.
Yeah, Pedro is buying a lot of time here, and more importantly, he's buying space, forcing Autumn Sadness to chase him down to the opposite corner of the map, allowing his team, they're doubling one gen, they got another survivor on a different gen. They could be popping 3 gens for this, and the tunnel out onto Pedro Hertz is costing Autumn at least 3 gens and every possible gen spread that they can have. So from Calamity's perspective, this is exactly where you want to be. Not only that, but Laser having Deliverance available will mean that Calamity survivors have an opportunity to make some serious plays in the later portion of this game to force Autumn Sadness to make some very difficult decisions. The down comes down to Laser on the edge map. This could be 2 hooks, but Autumn Sadness is just going to leave Laser slugged. He's got Deliverance, he's got Unbreakable. There's really not a way that you can play this with and you know, not be punished for it, but Autumn Sadness wants to confirm this death onto Pedro Hertz, and also with the backup plan being Pop with Undying, Autumn Sadness has no Dying Light to passively slow down this game in the way that Laser had previously. They, I'm not sure, needs to confirm this death right now as Laser gets picked up. We've been going into a 3v1, but with 3 gens popped already.
And 50% on the main gen coming out as well here. This is so on edge, that could go either way from this moment. Is Autumn Sadness also able to pick the correct generator? Is he anticipating that we are working on the main building? The answer is no for now. Instead, checking the top left corner where we just removed the Hex Totem from the trial. Now the pop goes to Weasel. Will come out here. We are losing a little bit of time actually on the killer side, not able to find the survivor immediately, and all these seconds might make a huge difference. We're now in the main building, survivor nowhere to be found, however, and this is what Calamity has now as the potential resource. If they are able to constantly pressure the gens, but then communicating in time and leaving quick enough, they do a lot of damage for Autumn Sadness here.
Oh yeah, and I think the pop here might actually backfire. We've been seeing for a lot of killers bringing in Pentimento as the backup to Ruin. Obviously S tiers cannot run that part, it's banned for them, but the choice between Pop and Eruption has really been favoring Eruption for most of the S tier players, especially in this 3v1 scenario, being able to regress the gens remotely. Pop getting a little bit less value possibly here, as the hook stages are not coming in fast enough. Rocket with some pathing to get away from the Nurse, and once again, pull her away from the gens trying to work. And dodging out at least a couple sets of blinks. Rocket just going to be slugged here as Autumn Sadness knows, I just cannot afford to do this. I have to interrupt these gens now. Laser stealthing for this pickup. as Hein apparently was the survivor who was working on that main building this whole time with that balanced landing, able not only to get distance away from it, but to drop down without leaving the stagger noises and make the nurse wonder where they went.
Next gen coming out. One more and a couple of stages are needed afterwards. Hein using the balanced landing, sprinting towards the gen, trying to get progress in as soon as he can. Rocket will find himself onto a hook in just a moment here. Hein and Laser, the two survivors that have to go for the pressure for the anodes. They have the to-do list ahead of themselves. Rocket has 2 minutes luckily on himself, so the survivor team not under huge pressure here, not going to lose a survivor in just a moment. This is definitely an advantage for Calamity. Back onto the shack though, unfortunately Laser will take attack and will be a little bit trapped here on this side of the coal tower, so I don't think he will be able to make it too far away, which would mean pop kick coming out soon, hook stage coming out soon, but surprisingly he's making a further travel than we anticipated, and they are going for the reset. Smart decision by Calamity here, not just hopping onto the gens, taking too much risk, but we will need some mistakes of Autumn Sadness, I feel like. Otherwise, Calamity will be in too much of a dangerous spot.
Yeah, eyes on Hein here. Remember, Calamity needs to get 3 stages out the door, with Laser being hooked once now, Rocket being hooked once now. Hein is the only survivor whose escape alone is a win con for Calamity. If it's anyone else, they will need 2 bodies out that door, not just 1. And Autumn Sadness probably is going to be looking for Hein specifically. Laser has Deliverance ready. They don't need to send anyone to go for him. Now Rocket is the one who is in Autumn Sadness' sights. Possibly a tunnel out onto him just to try to get a 2v1, which would make the game basically impossible if they're not able to stop him for that. But Rocket so far has been doing a phenomenal job of playing around the blink sets, making the nurse take way more than normally would to go for a down, and now just dying in that right corner. We do see a survivor working a gen opposite. Once again, Autumn Sadness is content to leave Rocket on the ground. Hein, this whole time, stealthing around the map, cranking out these gens for his team as Laser's in the position of altruism, trying to get his teammate picked up. Stealthing edge map here, not going to be spotted out. Hein also not being spotted out. Crouching to not disturb that crow. A very crucial giveaway that is being avoided here. Please take notes if you're trying to up your own stealth gameplay.
Hein and Laser. Laser broken on top of that, unfortunately, so we will not see a reset too soon, but a good amount of pressure on the gen down here, 30% at least already, so something that Calamity can work with when we are splitting now between the bottom generator and the top side. Hein, as healthy survivor, might be able to win a little bit of time for the survivor here. Is Autumn Sadness able to go to the quick injury? The answer is yes. And now Hein will need to serve the juice. Hein will need to take a chase that will last a little bit longer than average here so far in the trial. Going behind the shack, trying to see where the nurse is going. Perfect check spotting here. Knowing where the nurse is going, immediately taking the opposite movement. I think that movement was a little bit too soon though. Autumn Sadness should be able to catch him there, but it's not going to be the down call. A new window of opportunity for Calamity.
Yeah, especially if they're doubling gens. We know that Laser picked up Rocket, so they could be positioned to actually crank that out. But they would need to get both survivors out if Hein is going to go down here, and it will be. Is Autumn Sadness going to pick? No, Autumn Sadness is going for the slug. They're going to pop this gen anyway. And if Hein is picked up, Calamity is in a really good position here to get more than those 3 stages out that they need. Like, look at these gates. These gates are very, very defendable from the... sorry, not defendable. They are very difficult to defend for Autumn Sadness here. Rocket just dying in this corner, and good luck getting those done.
This is going to be such an intense endgame. We have to pick up onto Hein, and we need to go cross-map. Autumn Sadness cannot even go for the hook stage, and we only have 5 so far. That is perfect looking for Calamity if And that's the condition. If these injured survivors won't go down too quickly, especially Hein, Laser being back to injured as well, though, will go all the way onto the top side as well. And that's going to be the out right here on the bottom side onto Hein. And that's a fresh survivor call. That would be 3 stages out of the door, meaning 9 stages are moving out. And that's a win for Calamity.
Absolutely. Calamity clutching it out, High not being picked. That was exactly who they needed to protect, exactly who they needed out, and Autumn Tide is just not having the time required to get Hein hooked. Kind of backfires here, honestly. But we're seeing both Survivor teams just running to the corner of the map and showing the weakness of the Nurse in these games. That's exactly how you play against it. And the Nurse ends up being a very macro set more than anything. It really is surprising, as this will also be an additional 2 stages out. Calamity needed 3 stages out. They got 5. A nail biter of an ending, but that will be securing Calamity's spot in the playoffs.
Wow, most insane game to decide the playoffs. Insane. Calamity's players must be from Scandinavia, because no way they clutch this in the end game with 5 stages out of the door. Impressive. Calamity deserves the spot in the playoffs so much. After today, there will be no questions anymore about Calamity being in the playoffs. Insanely well done by them. Trauma, great best of 3, but unfortunately not going to be enough to go into the playoffs. And sorry towards Trauma, but after playing like this, Calamity does deserve the spot, though. I need to calm down, that's for sure. I'm so looking forward to Calamity going into the playoffs.